Hello guys, in this tutorial I will be sewing the pattern pieces which I drafted in a previous tutorial into this lovely princess cut bustier blouse. The link of the previous tutorial will be above and in the description box below. Hi, my name is Ayo and I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria. If this is your first time here, you are highly welcome. I upload DIYs, pattern drafting and sewing tutorials every week. If you haven't subscribed yet, kindly do well and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you are a returning subscriber, your support for my channel is highly appreciated. So now, let's get right into this tutorial. I'll be working with the following items. This is sequin fabric. I use about a quarter of a yard for the outfit. I use this to line the blouse. I use this as my lining fabric. This is African print fabric. This is interfacing AST. This is another type of interfacing called wadding. I use it for the breast pad. This is my fabric scissors, pins, and of course my pattern pieces which I drafted in my previous tutorial. So these are the pattern pieces that I'll be using for the blouse design. They do not have any seam allowances yet. This pattern is for the side front piece. I will cut 2 pieces of this on my fabric and I will add seam allowances when I cut it on my fabric. This is the center front piece. I will cut 1 piece on the fold and I will also add seam allowances before cutting it out on my fabric. This is the back piece. I will cut 2 pieces of this and I will add the needed seam allowances before cutting it out on my fabric. This is the bishop sleeve pattern. I will cut 2 pieces of this on the fold and I will add the needed seam allowances before cutting it out on my fabric. I'll be using these 2 front pieces to cut out the breast pad on the wadding. I want the breast pad to start from above the bust and it should end under the bust. You should take your shoulder to above bust and shoulder to under bust measurement. So I will draw a line above my bust region like this, and this is the under bust which I've already drawn the line. And I will bring in my wadding. I will cut out the breast part just like this. Well, actually, I also have cut this center front piece on the fold, but not to worry, I can still use it like that. So these pieces are for the breast pad. So now I've gone ahead to cut all the pattern pieces on my fabric. This is the sleeve. I cut 2 pieces of it on fold and I've already added the needed seam allowances. I'll be using these 2 pieces for the band at the hem of the sleeves. It is 7 inches and its length is the around arm measurement plus 1 inch for seam allowance. I already interfaced it, as you can see. This is the side front pieces which I cut 2 pieces on lining and I've already interfaced it and added the breast pad. I've also cut 2 pieces of it on the main fabric. And also on the sequin fabric. So this is the center front piece. I cut 1 piece of it on fold on the lining. I've already interfaced it and fixed the breast pad, as you can see. I also cut 1 piece on fold on the main fabric. And also on the sequin fabric. This is the back piece. I cut 2 pieces on the lining and also on the main fabric. This long strip of fabric is what I will be using on the neckline, for the pleats on the neckline of the blouse. It is 5 inches wide and the length is 82 inches long. I'll be using these strips to create the detail at the center front of the blouse. After folding in the seam allowances, it should be about 1 inch wide and its length should be about the front length of the blouse. So I will arrange the fabric strips at the front of the blouse like so. This is actually the detail I intend to create at the front of the blouse. So I have here the exact amount of fabric that I need to cut out the peplum of the blouse. To know how to calculate the exact amount of fabric needed to cut a flare, I will drop the link to an article I wrote on my blog above and in the description box below. So now I will fold the fabric into 2 like this. I will now fold it again like this. So now I should have about 4 layers of fabric. What I will do now is to measure out the radius of the flare, which is half of my waist circumference divided by 6.28. I use half of my waist circumference because the peplum is a 720-degree peplum. I will now measure, after marking the radius that I estimated, I will now go ahead and measure the flare length, which is actually my desired blouse length minus the front length of the bodice. So I will measure it and mark it out like this. I will also add 1 inch seam allowance to it. I will now go ahead and add the 1 inch seam allowance. This design features a 720-degree peplum, so I will also cut another full circle flare for the back as well. This full circle flare is just for the front only. This is a 360 flare. Two 360 flares will make it 720-degree flare for the whole blouse. So I will slash open one side. So this is for the front alone. So I will now go ahead and cut out another piece for the back. I'll be using the first flare that I earlier cut as a template to cut out the second flare. I will be cutting open the flare on both ends like this, because we have two back pieces. I will also go ahead and cut the peplum on the lining and also on the interfacing as well. So now I've gone ahead to do that. I'll fix the interfacing on the wrong side of the main fabric as well as the lining. So now the first thing I'll do is to secure the sequin fabric to the main fabric with my pins, like this. I'll place the wrong side of the sequin on the right side of the main fabric. I will secure the two pieces in place with my pins. I will do the same thing for the other pieces, for the other front pieces as well. After doing this, I will go ahead and stitch it in place on my sewing machine. I stitch it all around. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So now I've stitched the sequin fabric on the Ankara pieces. I've also stitched the Ankara strips on the sequin, as you can see. I will now go ahead and stitch the center front pieces to the side front pieces along the princess cut bustier line. While sewing, you will discover one piece is longer than the other. Do not trim off the excess. What you will do is to ease or stretch the shorter piece while sewing, such that the pieces now matches up after sewing. So now I will go ahead and do that. I've joined the front pieces together. I've also joined the lining pieces together as well. Can you see how well defined the breast cup is? For the back pieces, I will go ahead and stick the darts in place. So now I've gone ahead to do that. I've stick the darts in place for the back pieces for both the lining and the main fabric. So what I intend to do now is to go ahead and join the lining and the main fabric together at the neckline. I will use 1/2 inch seam allowances for the joining. I will do this for the front and the back pieces. I will go ahead and do that now. I will knot the neckline. I will flip the seam allowances to the lining side and then I will understitch it like this. So now I've attached the lining and the main fabric together at the neckline. This is the peplum. I will place the lining piece on the main fabric like this. Right sides will be together. I will now pin this crinoline at the hem of the flare. I will pin it in place like this. I will now take it to my sewing machine and stitch it in place using 1/2 inch seam allowance. I will do the same for the back peplum pieces as well. So I'll go ahead and do the stitching now. After stitching, I will flip the seam allowance towards the lining, and then I will understitch it in place like this. I understitch it on the lining like this. This will keep the crinoline firmly in place. So now that has been done, this is the crinoline sandwiched in between the lining and the main fabric. Can you see the effect of the crinoline at the hem of the peplum? It is now time to join the bodice to the peplum at the waistline. I will now pin the two pieces in place, making sure that their center points match up. I will be sewing fabric to fabric and lining to lining. I will sew using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I will stitch like that. So I will do the same thing for the back pieces as well. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Now that has been done, I have attached the bodice to the peplum for both the back and the front pieces, as you can see. I will now turn the front piece to the wrong side. And I will close the side seams. I will stitch the side seams. But first, I will pin it in place before taking it to my sewing machine. I will sew using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I will do the same thing for the other side as well. I will also do the same thing for the back pieces. So now that has been done, I have closed the side seams for both the front and the back. So what I intend to do now is to join the front and the back pieces together at the shoulder. I will pin the two pieces together like this at the shoulder. And I will stitch using 1/2 inch seam allowance. I will pin it in place like this. Then I will take it to my sewing machine and I will stitch it in place using 1/2 inch seam allowance. As you can see, I will stitch fabric to fabric and lining to lining. So now that has been done, I've joined the front and the back pieces together at the shoulder lines. This long strip of fabric is what I will use for the pleats at the neckline of the blouse. I have already interfaced the wrong side of the strip. The interfacing is optional. This is the interfacing is optional. You may skip this step. So now I will fold the strip into two like this, and I will sew it in place using 1/2 inch seam allowance. I will fold right sides together. So now I've done that. I've also turned it to the right side. I've also ironed it. I've already marked the position of the pleats. So I'll go ahead and stitch the pleats in place. So now I've done that, I've already stitched the pleats in place. I will now go ahead and pin it in place on the neckline of the blouse like this. I will now take it to my sewing machine. After securing it in place with my pins, I take it to my sewing machine. I will stitch it in place at the middle. So now that has been done. I will now go ahead and close this opening at the center back of the blouse. I will close this opening. I will stitch in place using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I will stitch in place using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Note that this is the center back, so I will go ahead and do that now. So now that has been done, so it's now time to fix the zip at the center back of the blouse. I don't want the zip to go all the way down to the hem of my blouse. So the zip will end around this point, so I will mark that point. I will mark the point like this, and I will stitch it to the hem. I stitch it down to the hem using about 3/4 of an inch or half an inch seam allowance. So I will mark this first with my chalk and my tape rule for measurement. I will stitch all the way to the hem. So now that has been done, so now I will go ahead and mark 3/4 of an inch or half an inch depending on the amount of seam allowance you used earlier. I will mark it like this. Remember that we left 1 inch for the zip at the center back, so you should be cautious of this when doing your marking. I will follow the center back curve while doing the marking also. It won't be a straight line because the center back is not straight. So I'll go ahead and fix the zip to the center back of the blouse. Note that I've changed the foot of my sewing machine to a zipper foot. I'm not using the normal sewing machine foot at this point. So now the zip has been fixed. For this extra zipper tape, I will fold it like this and I will stitch it in place like this. I will do the same thing for the other side also. I will stitch it in place like this. For this extra zipper tape coming out of the hem of the blouse, I will trim it off. So I will turn my blouse to the wrong side like this. Right sides will be together. I will now go ahead and sew the side seams, but please and please, before sewing, confirm your waist and your bust measurements first. I will now go ahead and join the side seams. So now that has been done, I've already joined the side seams together. I will now move over to the sleeves. For the sleeve, the first thing I'll do is to gather the hem of the sleeve. You should gather it. After gathering, the length of the hem should be your around arm measurement plus 1 inch for this, plus 2 inches for the seam allowance at the side. So I've already gathered the hem. I will now go ahead and attach this cuff. I've already folded in the 1/2 inch seam allowance. I will pin the band or the cuff to the sleeve like this. I will pin it in place. I will pin the band to the sleeve like this. Right sides will be together. I will stitch using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So now that has been done, I will now turn it to the right side. I will stick the band in place like this, in between the ridge, so that the seam line is not visible. I will go ahead and do that now. So now that has been done. So I'll fold the sleeve into two. I fold it into two like this. Right sides will be together. I will pin it in place. Now I will take it to my sewing machine and stitch in place using about 1 inch sewing allowance. So now that has been done, I've also turned the sleeve to the right side. So what I'll do now is to go ahead and fix the sleeves to the armhole of the blouse. I'll make sure that while sewing, right sides of the blouse and the right side of the sleeves are together. I will pin it in place first before taking it to my sewing machine and stitching it in place. I will stitch in place using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So once I'm done, I will show you what the blouse looks like on my dress form. So I will sew all around like this using 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this is what the blouse looks like on my dress form. So that's it, guys. We are done. Do not forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you in my next tutorial. Bye and thank you for watching.